Good day, everyone. Welcome to Real Conservative News. I'm your host, Nathaniel Rajkumar, starting off locally here in Trinidad and Tobago with some really significant but really good news, in my opinion, and it should be something that everyone celebrates. The state has designated 3 Middle Eastern paramilitary and political organizations as terrorist entities, namely Hezbollah, Hamas, and Islamic Revolutionary Guard, that is, of course, in Iran, controlled by the Ayatollah regime. This was done between April 8th and April 9th, following applications by the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago. They were gazetted on Monday. Former National Security Minister Gary Griffith yesterday expressed support for the measures aimed at preventing terrorist organizations from using local systems to expand their operations, pointing to international efforts that began over a decade ago. So these are terrorist groups that are recognized internationally, people. It's not something that is just Trump or anything like that. Even though, putting aside that they are recognized internationally as terrorist groups, what the mainstream media, the radical jihadist mainstream media, and even the United Nations ends up doing is that even though they recognize them as terrorist groups, when America or Israel takes military action against them, they claim civilians are lost. When it's really when really and truly what is taking place is that these terrorists and their allies in those specific areas are the ones that are being eliminated. And Israel especially warns civilians, legitimate, genuine civilians, to evacuate certain areas before they carry out their military operations or strikes. You will not hear that on the Kakash mainstream media here in Trinidad and Tobago. Only if you're looking at my news reports, daily news reports, on Real Conservative News, you will hear that fact. My response: tribal patriots refuse to differentiate between members of that faith in our nation, the Islamic faith in our nation, who love and respect people who belong to other religions, and the radical jihadists in the Middle East who vow to enforce Sharia law throughout the world. There's a huge difference. I know that there are extremists here in Trinidad and Tobago as well, but the average person following that faith that I know, they don't think or act like that. They respect everyone. I have a good friend of mine. He follows his faith. He's very devoted. But yet when it comes time, he has a lot of friends of all different religions. And one of his very close friends passed away a couple of years ago. And he went and he attended the funeral and he was very humble and normal. There are people that are normal within that faith, people. Right? But at the end of the day, they are also the extremists. And that is what the government needs to be very, very cautious about, especially because these kind of terrorist organizations try to infiltrate all nations around the world. I wanted to say those terrorists in the Middle East murder Christians in Nigeria, Sudan, Congo, and Syria. And that's just to name a few of the significant places where genocide, real genocide actually takes place. So those terrorists in those groups murder Christians in Boko Haram also is another a terrorist group that we should recognize here in Trinidad and Tobago if we haven't done so already. Let me read over that once again. Those terrorists murder Christians in Nigeria, Sudan, Congo, and Syria who refuse to convert. Do you approve of those actions, my dear locals? I am sure 90% of you will say no. You will never approve of those actions because you have integrated into our society. You have learned to respect our culture and Western civilization values. You hold on to your beliefs, yes, and your faith, but you respect the rights of others to also believe in what they want. And that's the difference, people. And that's why you need to stop considering those in the Middle East as your brothers, because they are not. They do not hold to your same values. So I will ask the question again. I said, do you approve of those actions? What about the Druze in Syria? That's another religious group, not Christians, another religious group. So what about the Druze in Syria who were facing genocide earlier this year and last year until Israel, not even the United Nations, not even America, Israel intervened to save their lives and those people. What do you have to say about those things? How can you continue to consider those people to be your brothers that you're defending? just because they supposedly belong to your same faith. That is wrong, people. That is completely wrong. Speaking about concerning right here in Trinidad and Tobago, Muslim groups across Trinidad and Tobago met in an emergency session recently to discuss government's decision to officially designate 3 organizations, Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, as terrorist entities. My response: why is there a need for an emergency meeting? I think this is very concerning. This is something that the Ministry of National Security should be concerned about. This right here proves my point about the spiritual blindness in TNT. I already explained it just now, so I don't need to go back into it in detail. I went on to ask, just like I asked just now, do you support the enforcement of Sharia law at a national level? My friends, probably even family members, extended family members who belong to the Islamic faith, do you propose or support the enforcing of Sharia law in our democracy here in Trinidad and Tobago? You are free to follow it in your personal lives, You want to do it? That is your choice. But do you approve of enforcing Sharia law, which will erase democracy here in Trinidad and Tobago? Do you approve of that? I'm very sure most of you won't, because you still want to have the opportunity to have freedom of choice, whether to follow that tradition or not. I want to ask, do you call for a worldwide jihadist against so-called infidels? Do you? Let me know, Comment and let me know. So I said, do you call for a worldwide jihad against infidels instead of waiting for God to place judgment upon those who commit evil? Now, we belong to different faiths. I am a born-again Christian, and therefore we do not serve the same God. But at the end of the day, it goes back to the question, in your religion and under your faith, do you believe in taking that type of action into your own hands instead of leaving judgment up to God to do? I went on to say, because of course people will say, but then, they will start to talk about America and Israel one time. I said, bear in mind that I'm not talking about waging war against another nation for a justifiable reason, a just cause, people. But I'm talking about the well-known acts of terrorism and mass murder committed by jihadists throughout the world. You know about when the jihadists said I'm going public places and then blow up. They go in marketplaces, they go in malls, and they go and have mass shootings and stuff like that. That is what I'm talking about. Those are acts of terror. That is not war. There's a difference between war and terror. God approves of war. There was a lot of wars that God was the one that commanded Israel to participate in the Bible. So when the Pope talking utter nonsense about God and love and peace, God is a God of love, but he's also a God of vengeance, a God of justice, a God of punishment. When Jesus returns on earth, now we're not talking about the rapture. We're talking about when Jesus returns on earth the second time, he's coming as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and as a mighty warrior to destroy and conquer Israel's enemies. That is what Jesus is returning to. So the Pope Leo needs to wake up and read his Bible, but most likely he's not going to, because we all know what Revelation says, and I believe that the false prophet will fall into that category. I went on to ask, I'm talking about the well-known acts of terrorism and mass murder committed by jihadists throughout the world, which is totally different to war. I went on to ask this question: do you call for the erasing of both Israel and the USA? Do you understand what that means? 300 plus million in America will be erased. 9 million, approximately 9 million, 6 to 9 million in Israel will be erased, including Arabs, including Muslims. Do you approve of that? Because that's exactly what the jihadists in Iran and in Syria and those places, that is what they want to do. I wanted to say, do you support the murdering of Christians and Jews in Nigeria, Sudan, Congo, Lebanon, and Syria who refuse to convert? Do you? I'm asking a question. Do you? Once again, I'm going to tell you plainly, I'm sure probably about 90% of Trinis who follow that faith will say, no, they don't support that. They don't support that. So then why are you supporting those groups? It begs the question, why are you supporting those groups? Just because they belong to your same faith, you should not be doing that. I wanted to say, if you don't, then you are allowing loyalty to your so-called religious brothers to cloud your judgment. That is what you're doing. You know, you all love to talk about do research. Well, go and do research and actually see what these groups actually believe in and what they stand for and what are their agendas, what they desire to do throughout the entire world. They will take away your own rights and freedoms here in Trinidad and Tobago, where you have the rights, you have the freedom to practice Sharia law if you want, and you also have the rights not to do so. There are even Muslims that don't really practice Sharia law in a very strict way either. If you allow that type of government or governance to take place here in Trinidad and Tobago, you will not have the choice to be moderate either. I want to say, I know many Muslim men and women who are peaceful, law-abiding and loving members of society, as I just gave the example just now. So it's very unlikely that they support the radical jihadist terrorist agendas in the Middle East. Honestly speaking, I don't believe so. Because when they see murder and stuff like that taking place in the country, they grieve. They are angry. They don't care about which faith the person belongs to. They are very upset about it as well. I am not saying that they aren't extremists. I do believe that there are extremists in here in Trinidad and Tobago as well. And that's what the government needs to be concerned about. But I believe the vast majority have adopted and have adapted to Western civilization values and customs. And therefore, that's why they embrace and they respect everyone. I went on to say the Kakash media must be held accountable for portraying Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and the Ayatollah IRGC as freedom fighters instead of radical terrorists. That is what is taking place too. You all watch Al Jazeera, you all watch CNN. Those are anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic channels that promote a whole lot of propaganda, people. I wanted to say your brothers in the Middle East are not like you. They don't respect other people's religious rights and culture. Former Energy Minister Stuart Young said the number of offline plants reflects reduced gas allocations by NGC, which he argued has strained relationships with customers. He said the plants are offline at Point Lisas as a direct result of the incompetence of NGC Chairman Gerald Ramdeen and NGC Director and Atlantic LNG Chair Dr. Rampasad Motilal at the NGC and the short-sighted decisions that are taking place at NGC to shift gas allocations from their customers. Now, putting aside what I'm going to say in my commentary there, I mean, I hope that Gerald Ramdeen addresses this issue and clarifies and debunks if anything is being pushed as propaganda, debunk what is being said, otherwise explain to us why this is being done. Nevertheless, it's totally hypocritical of the PNM to be raising these kind of issues in the first place. So I went on to say, may the ancestral powers of the mighty Morphin Ghanaian be with you always. Zami Young, best prime minister ever. Yes, people, best prime minister ever. Shortest serving prime minister in our nation's history. And the only one that did not become prime minister by winning a general election, people. And what makes it even worse and more controversial is that the president of Trinidad and Tobago appointed him to be prime minister, even though he was not the leader or deputy political leader of the People's National Movement, which had the majority members in parliament. And the constitution makes it very clear that the only way that you can appoint someone when using your own discretion as a president is if there's no political leader of the majority party. The fact of the matter is, after Rowley resigned, which he never gave a reason for resigning or retiring, right, just before an election, when he could have called elections himself, he was still the political leader of the People's National Movement. What he should have done is resign from both positions immediately. And that would have made it legitimate for Zami Young to become the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And in a case like that, I myself would have been calling him former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Because it was not done in that way which is stipulated in the Constitution, I will always mention him by his other positions, his other titles, like former Minister of Energy and whatsoever else. But anyhow, I said best Prime Minister ever. I said PNM patriots are always concerned about so-called corruption and incompetence when they're in opposition, even though our nation is in this financial crisis in the first place because of their performance in office for the past 10 years. Hypocrisy is the PNM. You know how they love to say great is the PNM? No, people. It's hypocrisy is the PNM.
Thursday, April 16, 2026 Weather report Trinidad to Tobago. Variably cloudy, hazy and breezy. Generally fair conditions are expected with occasional isolated showers likely during the early morning hours. A mild to moderate concentration of Saharan dust is present in the atmosphere. Temperature, high of 30 degrees Celsius and a low of 24 degrees Celsius. Feels like, heat index of 34 degrees Celsius. Wind, east to southeast at 5 to 40 kilometers per hour. Humidity, 65% to 90%. Marine conditions, moderate seas with waves 2.0 meters to 2.5 meters in open waters. Spring tides are in effect. Sunrise at 5:51 a.m. and sunset at 6:14 p.m.
Regional news now. The Agricultural Input Warehouse in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is celebrating 24 years of service to farmers and the nation with a week of activities under the theme 24 years of cultivating quality, catching excellence. The Agriculture Input Warehouse, owned and operated by the government, specializes in providing farmers with tools and essential resources, which is important, and that's what we need to focus even more here in Trinidad. The facility is also responsible for the distribution of brown and white sugar and the management of the Kingstown Fish Market.
It's about giving back to the people who have supported us. And we'll be having a host of activities at our main office, at the Kingstown Fish Market and at the Sugar Department, where we're inviting you to come out and participate. We'll be having several stalls, because we are doing it in the form that we can have like a mini expo. So we'll be having several stalls. We'll be having local products. So we need for you to come out. We'll be starting off with our tea station. So if you don't have breakfast, you can come down and get something warm. We'll be having a double station. So we'll be having a barber to groom our male customers, because you know you have to look good to feel good. That's my motto. We'll be having a masseuse. I know when the farmers go out into the fields, you can get the backaches, the footache, but we want to do something special for you so that at the end of the day that you feel special. We would also be having locally made jewelry. We'll be having locally made hair products. We'll be having locally made soaps. We also would be having a booth from the Agriculture Input Warehouse where you can come and get some seedlings and see what products we offer on a whole. I know the Agriculture Input Warehouse, although we've been in existence for 24 years, a number of persons are not aware of what we do, and we want to educate you.
Where our vendors and our customers, they could come and they could get their blood pressure tested, their blood sugar tested, and so forth. Also, there would be sampling. Now, we at the Kingstown Fish Market, we have a retail outlet that has a variety of fish already packaged, sliced, and ready for to be consumed. Now, we especially have this product, smoked fish and corn fish. Now, the smoked fish is really something new that we've been trying, and the customer has really given us great report when it comes on in this. Now, this smoked fish is lovely. We're just coming off the Easter break, and the customers, they love it. It's easy to prepare and everything like that. So we're gonna have samples there ready so that more people could be aware of this product, because this product is an excellent product. Now, the vendors, fish vendors and fishermen, they've been working very hard, day in and day out. Now, we at the Agricultural Input Warehouse, we wanna take this time to appreciate them. Sometimes there are some unsung heroes, because without them, we won't be able to eat fresh fish. So at this time, and the 17th, we take the opportunity to just appreciate our fishermen, our fish vendors, as well as our customers, because we are one big happy family.
Minister of Health in Guyana, the Honorable Dr. Frank Anthony, yesterday joined Regional Chairman Mr. Brenton Lashley, along with officials of the Regional Health Department in Region 1, Barima Waini, for the handover of 7 boats, each with 40 horsepower engines to enhance healthcare delivery across riverine and remote communities, going where people actually need these services and they cannot really access healthcare otherwise. Wonderful news out of Guyana as usual. The vessels will support outreach services along key areas including Red Hill, Blackwater, Savannah, the Waini River, and communities within the Barama and Maruka sub-regions where access to healthcare has long been a challenge due to distance and transportation limitations. Remember, you had to use boat and all kind of thing. The boat will facilitate a wide range of essential services, including mobile vaccination, outreaches for children, that part of it. But anyhow, school health programs, chronic disease monitoring, and home visits for bedridden and vulnerable patients. Jamaica could move to drill for oil off the coast of St. Thomas within the next 2 years. It isn't really futuristic anymore. It's right there. Following encouraging early findings from a recent geochemical survey, the study conducted by independent oil company United Oil and Gas confirmed the presence of hydrocarbons in offshore soil samples, a key indicator of potential petroleum deposits. Science, Energy, Telecommunications, and Transport Minister Darrell Vaz said the results mark an important step forward, but cautioned that Jamaica is still some way from actual production. Yeah, but if it's 2 years away, that ain't bad at all. I would be so happy for Jamaicans. Their country will prosper significantly if they end up being able to join the energy industry in that capacity. That would be really wonderful news for them, just like how Guyana is now prospering and becoming one of the richest, wealthiest nations in our region. Yes, people, I speak a whole lot about tribalism and whatsoever, but that doesn't mean I don't care about all these people in spite of their flaws and whatsoever. And then besides that, I really do believe that Prime Minister Andrew Holness does lean a lot on the conservative side of politics. He actually condemns communism and so forth. And I believe under his leadership, Jamaica can definitely prosper a lot in the future.
Any move to drilling would only take place after full environmental and social impact assessment, stakeholders engagement, and relevant permits and cabinet approval. This is a careful step-by-step process. The ministry, together with United Oil and Gas, continues to take a disciplined and evidence-based approach, ensuring that any decisions taken are grounded in sound science and in the best interests of the country. So let me just pause again to say that the results are very positive, but they are positive scientifically because they have seen traces. They haven't seen or touched the real deal. But it's still important because that is what will move to the next step. So I want to indicate again that I am cautiously optimistic and praying very hard. And I encourage every Jamaican to do the same because obviously of what the impact of that, of any discovery would be. The next step would be to drill one of possibly 14 wells. The one well would require a capital investment of between 60 and 80 million United States dollars. Now, in the scheme of things in the oil business, that's not big money. It's big money for us, but not big money in that industry. So what's the next steps? The next steps would be United Oil and Gas to shop those results around to see if they can get any interest by these large companies who would then want to invest in drilling. So far, based on the results and my discussions with United Oil and Gas, there are several companies that have already contacted them, some of which wouldn't answer their phone call a year or two ago. So that's very encouraging. And the last I spoke to him, he was on the way to the United States for this week to have several meetings with some of the major oil companies. So again, my commitment is to keep Jamaica advised every step of the way, and I can indicate based on my discussions that if they were to raise the capital to drill, that wouldn't happen until late 2027, going into 2028. So the government, once there is an agreement for an investor to partner with oil and gas, they would have to come back to the government of Jamaica to renegotiate a drilling component. Right now it's just an exploration license that they have. So that will be another process. So again, cautiously optimistic, but definitely encouraged. And of course, we know that Jamaica needs some break coming on the heels of COVID, Beryl, Melissa, and now the war.
In a significant move to bolster regional integration and national competitiveness, 23 Barbadian students and teachers recently embarked on a week-long Spanish immersion program in Panama. This initiative, funded by a U.S. $100,000 grant from CAF, Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, represents a strategic partnership with the government of Barbados to transform the island's linguistic landscape. The program is a cornerstone of the enhancing capacities to communicate in Spanish, Espanol project. By placing participants in the heart of Panama City, the initiative moves beyond traditional classroom learning, offering a rigorous curriculum of daily linguistic training paired with real-world cultural exchanges, which will really help people to be able to use it in practical terms, language, instead of just learning it from books. For students, the experience is designed to build fluency, and that's what I really believe they will benefit a lot from here. And intercultural confidence for teachers. It provides a vital platform to exchange modern pedagogical techniques with their Panamanian peers. Bahamas Long Island's water supply faces a critical ongoing crisis driven by contamination, overpumping, and infrastructure gaps, as the area relies entirely on a single source aquifer system. Contaminants from decades of industrial activities, such as chemical plumes from the former Grumman site, are degrading water quality. My Lord, people, but that could affect people's health. Additionally, high nitrogen levels from antiquated septic systems threaten to make the water unsafe, while overpumping causes saltwater intrusion, particularly in vulnerable areas like Long Beach. The government needs to address that situation immediately, without delay.
Water supply issues on Long Island are not new, but for many residents, the frustration is boiling over. For years, access to reliable water has remained a daily struggle, and as the country heads into a general election, voters say it's one of their top concerns. When asked what needs urgent fixing, water was at the top of the list.
We don't have no run of water. The only run of water is stop right down the road by the shop. So that's a problem.
And how long has this been your reality?
Man, it's been at least about almost 4 years. Right. 4 years.
So for the past 4 years, how have you been getting your water?
Actually, by the well, by the tie the rope on the bucket and dip it in there, then put it in the jug and then tote it from there, from the well.
At least a 3-minute walk to a well that serves as a source of fresh water for some Long Islanders who have to use this well to wash dishes, bathe, and even cook. This is the reality for some of the Long Islanders who say they are quite frankly fed up and in need of a solution, especially as we are in the height of election season.
You make a couple of trips, like say about 4 or 5 jogs, and you rinse for the day and tell maybe tomorrow morning or so.
Owner of Rowdy Boys Construction, Benjamin Knowles, says his company, along with 40 employees, has been working to change that. Over the past 2 to 3 months, they've installed an 8-mile water pump system with plans to extend another 8 to 10 miles.
Right now we're doing the installation of the water supply in McCann's, and we're also doing the road from Stella Maris to Saltpond. Every day you got to go look for water is a struggle. So it's a great relief for the locals, at least the locals in this area.
But away from those project sites, the reality is far different. Residents on settlements like Gordon's, Millerton's, and Seymour's say consistent water supply is still out of reach.
Sometimes at night we don't have water, but we work with it. And if the water goes low, we just full containers so we'll be able to have water. Some places they actually don't have water at all, but we try our best.
For some basic tasks like bathing or cleaning mean walking to a community pump, a daily routine they say should not exist in 2026.
The island thinks it's very slow here, and hope we can get some more investment on the island,
While progress is being made in parts of the island, Free National Movement candidate Dr. Andre Rollins says the approach lacks balance, arguing that development cannot be selective and residents in other communities are being left behind.
Kudos to him for trying to improve the infrastructural state of Long Island. But one thing that I hear when I campaign, and this is when I talk about making sure that we are politicians for all the people, it made absolutely no sense for waterworks to be done for Long Island, and whole settlements were skipped. And the people on the ground, their perception is that they were skipped because those areas in their minds were skipped because they didn't support the Member of Parliament.
And with Election Day approaching, voters are making it clear this time their ballots will reflect their reality. A reality where running water is still not a certainty. Danielle Dean, Eyewitness News.
International news now. U.S. President Donald Trump says the war with Iran is very close to being over as the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports in the Strait of Hormuz continues. President Trump, let's be very clear about something. Using this type of pressure is wonderful that you're doing the blockade and whatsoever, right? And because you're trying to place financial pressure on the Ayatollah. What you fail to realize, I believe you know it, but they keep kind of trying to use other different strategies, is the Ayatollah terrorists don't care about making ultimate sacrifices for their cause. And therefore, the only way to be able to finish this war sooner than later is by finishing the job, like what Lindsey Graham told you very recently. You know it, in the back of your mind, but for some reason you always like to try different strategies first.
Good evening, I'm Bill Malugin, and this is your Fox News report. The war with Iran is, quote, very close to over. That's what President Trump told Fox Business. The U.S. blockade of Iranian ports in the Strait of Hormuz continues. No ships have passed during the first 48 hours. The Pentagon now reporting nearly 400 U.S. service members have been injured since the start of Operation Epic Fury. A Chinese researcher is sentenced to 4 months in prison after being busted for smuggling E. coli into the U.S. Prosecutors say he received a package falsely labeled as women's underwear from a Chinese science company back in 2024. He pled guilty and will be deported after his sentence. An Oklahoma high school principal risks his life to stop a gunman. Video shows a former student armed and walking into the school before trying to open fire, but that attack was foiled when Kirk Moore tackled him. Moore was shot, but is expected to be okay. A massive crash on a Colorado highway, leaving 19 people injured. Authorities say about 70 vehicles were involved amidst snowy conditions Tuesday. One person suffered serious injuries. And a large chunk of ice falling from the sky and crashing into a California house. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. The homeowner says ice could be from the plane passing overhead in Whittier. The FAA now investigating. And remember, it's tax day. If you still need to file, you have until midnight, or you can always request an extension. In Washington, I'm Bill Malugin. Have a great night.
U.S. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. He said, I think if we don't stand up and take ownership of our country and take responsibility for it, we are slowly letting others control how we think and what we think. He said, if you think it's losing confidence, then you get up and participate. You don't sit on the sidelines. And he's speaking about conservatives who most of the times are very passive and allow the far left radicals and the very fringed QAnon far right to be the ones that are dominating social media and so forth. Come out and be bold and stand up for true conservatism, which is based on biblical values, people. Justice Clarence Thomas, bear in mind, he's an African American, is one of the most genuine conservatives it has in the Supreme Court compared to any of the others. So it's not about race either, people. Because you know what's the reality? Most African Americans, especially the past, were genuine conservatives, you know, people. And it's because of the Democrats deceiving them into thinking a lot about, and instilling into their minds a whole lot of tribal thoughts of concepts and ideologies. That's why a lot of them have turned liberals nowadays. But when you go back in history, most African Americans leaned a whole lot more on the Christian conservative side than they do nowadays. And there's still a whole lot of them that still lean on the Christian conservative side.
I think if we don't stand up and take ownership of our country and take responsible for it, we are slowly letting others control how we think and what we think. I think the beauty of going to school is that you learn how to think for yourself. You develop the discipline to think things through. If you think it's losing confidence, then you get up and you participate. You don't sit on the sidelines. You think that the state is being run and inconsistent with how you feel, then you get up and you participate. You prepare yourself. If you think that the medical profession is not right, well, you become a doctor or be a medical person, and you deal with that. I think we need to take ownership of our country. It's our country.
A humpback whale was freed after being stranded on a sandbar off Australia's coast. Rescuers were able to guide a 30-foot mammal back to the open ocean. Wonderful news coming out from Fox News again. And these days, they're featuring these types of news reports. It's just sort of the normal politics and stuff like that, and I love it. And I will continue to highlight it here on Real Conservative News.
Come on, bud. Come on.
Not bad.
Come on! Yes! Careful, lads. Watch that fluke, Benno. Yeah, I'm right.
Now for the interesting fact segment. In a touching moment from Beaumont, Sophia Teal, a dedicated dental assistant at Rissinger and Nelson orthodontic specialist, was honored after 20 years of service with an unforgettable surprise. Her bosses gifted her $20,000, $1,000 for each year she devoted to helping patients smile brighter. What she thought might be a serious meeting turned into a life-changing gesture of gratitude. More than just an employee, she was family to them. They considered her to be family. The timing couldn't have been better as she was about to close on her first home. God works in mysterious ways. She worked hard. She did her job honestly and professionally, and she was rewarded for it. What a wonderful fact.
Welcome to Real Conservative News Travel Adventures. The Mzab Valley, located in the heart of the Algerian Sahara, is a remarkable testament to human ingenuity and communal living. Established in the 11th century by the Mozabite people, this UNESCO World Heritage Site consists of 5 fortified hilltop towns known as the Pentapolis, Gardaya, Beni Azgen El Atuf, Malika, and Bunora. Each town is meticulously designed around a central mosque, with pastel-colored homes radiating outward in concentric circles, creating a unique architectural harmony that has inspired modern urban planners for generations. The valley is defined by its deep spiritual and social traditions. The inhabitants follow the Ibadi school of Islam, maintaining a lifestyle that prioritizes modesty and community cohesion. Visitors to the MZAB must be accompanied by local guides to enter the historic quarters, and strict social codes, such as dress modesty and a ban on smoking, are observed to protect the sanctity of the residents' way of life. The sight of women in the traditional white hake and the sound of the call to prayer echoing across the rocky plateau transport travelers back to a simpler, more disciplined era. Beyond the stone walls, the valley is a thriving oasis. Despite the harsh desert environment, the Mozabites developed a sophisticated underground irrigation system to sustain vast palm groves. These gardens provide a cool, green sanctuary against the arid landscape, producing dates and providing a space for agriculture. The MZAB Valley is more than just a tourist destination, it is a living museum of faith, architecture, and environmental stewardship that remains steadfastly preserved against the passage of time. Hope you enjoyed today's video, and we'll see you again tomorrow as our journey around the world continues.
Folks, that brings us to the end of today's news report. Thanks again to everyone who continues to support my content. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay blessed and stay safe most of all. In Jesus' name.